So people don't live in the truth not because they don't know it, but because living it requires something most are not willing to give up. Now, what happens when we have to give up the illusion is everything changes. And sometimes we could have all kinds of feelings of fear of like, oh, well, deep down, what if I fully live in my truth? I might lose, validation. I might lose comfort. Maybe I will lose control, or maybe I'll lose some relationships. And so some people, they stay in partial truth, just enough to feel aware, but not enough to actually change, because the fear that is underlying that change is too much, is too scary, because the truth is going to ask you who you think you are. It's going to ask you about the roles that you've built, and it's going to ask you about the stories that you've attached to. And most people are more committed to their identity than to the truth. And so they stay somewhere familiar, let's say even, for example, if it's painful, because sometimes that known uncomfortable feeling is to that person more comfortable than what could potentially happen if they truly were honest. And why does this happen? Because I bet at some point in your life you said something and you were truly deeply honest, and something happened because of it. Maybe you lost a friend, or maybe you realized like, oh, me, I don't actually get along with this person, and maybe it created a rift. And so we start to live in half truths. We shake our heads and we agree when we don't actually agree. We pretend like we're okay with things that we are absolutely not okay with. And we're doing this out of our trauma wounds, because we don't want to create a situation like we did in the past that made us feel uncomfortable. And so we stick in these patterns. But what happens is that when we start to live in the truth, the real truth, it removes the ability to blame. And so when you can't blame your past, and you can't blame others, and you can't stay in victimhood, well, then what am I? Some people identify so strongly with their story and with the fact that they have been a victim for such a long time that something would really have to change within them. They would have to gain a new identity from, oh, I'm a victim and all these things happened to me, to something more empowered. And that in itself sounds great, right? But it can be so uncomfortable because we don't know what it's like if we've never played that other healed role before. And so that uncomfortable feeling, and it's not even the uncomfortable, but it's really the unknown feeling, can keep us in these places. And while we're going through that process, the truth can be really, really uncomfortable, because people want peace, but they don't want the exposure that comes before it. Let me give you an example. Let's say, this person has done this really horrible thing and they have kept it inside them, let's say 15, 20 years. And so they have this horrible thing that only their thought loops in their mind know about. Nobody else in the external world, except for maybe one person, maybe had something to do with someone else. Nobody else knows about this. And what happens is that type of thing sitting inside of us is so uncomfortable, and it takes up so much space within us. But that exposure of just saying, hey, this thing happened, sometimes we attach so many things to it that we don't want to let the truth out. And we would rather stay in that really uncomfortable space within ourselves rather than put it external and make someone else uncomfortable with us now. I knew a person who had been abused when they were younger, which this is such a common thing. And it's so common, but so many people don't talk about it, right? They don't say, oh yeah, me too. Some people don't. And so whoever is telling their story, feels like, okay, well, I'm alone in this, not them too, because they didn't speak up. Meanwhile, we don't know what's going on in somebody's world or head, but I knew this person who had suffered this abuse, but they were embarrassed They felt so often like children do, like it was their fault, like their partner was going to think of them differently. And so they suffered for years and years and years and years and years and years and years with this internal battle with themselves, because they felt that if they spoke the truth, that people in their life wouldn't be able to handle it. They didn't want them, thinking any differently of them. They didn't want to make the people in their life uncomfortable. And so they kept this uncomfortable truth buried deep within themselves. And what happens when we do this is it begins to eat away at parts of ourself, because it's taking up space in your body. It's actually taking up space. And so when we allow it to be there, that is not what's actually meant to be there. That's not what's meant to be there long term. It's meant to be there short term so that we can learn something from it, so we can gain the lesson from it, and so that we can then let it go and we can fill that space with love, light, and truth instead. But it can only come out when we are ready and willing to live in that truth and to express it fully. But sometimes people will confuse feelings, wounds, triggers, or reactions with the truth. And so they'll say things like, oh, I feel this, and so it must be real. But the truth isn't reactive. The truth is stable, it's clear, and it's consistent. And often our triggers will lie to us, and it will say, hey, this thing is happening again, when indeed that thing is not happening again, but it is bringing up something that is not healed within you yet, that just wants some attention. And now we could say, oh, this just seems like an endless journey. When does it end? Well, I have to tell you that it doesn't. This is the whole beautiful thing about evolution, is that we're all seeking this perfection within us. And as we seek this beautiful perfection, the closer that we get to it, the more we realize, oh, these layers, man, they go so deep. I thought that this thing over here was healed, but I guess I didn't actually have any exposure to this other thing over here to realize that, no, there is more that needs to be healed. But all of these things can be wonderful for us and can be gifts for us, but they can only be wonderful gifts for us when we are really truthful about what they are. And now I know that some of us have been victimized in certain situations, and so I will say this to that. I'm not taking away any of that, but I know myself from having been a victim myself, and I'm not going to even go into it, about all the different areas of where I was victimized. I look at those particular incidences now, certainly not at the time, as the most beautiful gold that exists in my entire life. Because it was the thing that forced me to either heal or die. Here's your choice. Kill yourself today or heal it. What do you want to do? And day after day after day after day, those were the choices that came up to me. Was heal it or just end it? Heal it or just end it? And through the choice of, well, I can't end it. I have children. This isn't an option for me. That's not why we're here. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. So I guess I have to heal it. And those horrible, horrific, traumatizing things were indeed the thing that was the hardest thing that you could possibly ever imagine healing. But on the other side of it is the most beautiful blessing and the most beautiful earth, planet, world that I want to be in, that I want to participate in. But it didn't always feel that way. During that process, it was very difficult. And you have to be able to heal these things, you have to go to a depth of spirit that most people don't go to. Maybe because they don't know that they can, maybe because they haven't taken the time to explore it, but I bet most often because it would be extremely uncomfortable. They haven't taken the time, they haven't gained the awareness around it, and it just seems like a whole lot of work that they don't want to do. And so they don't. And this is also a choice. The only reason we're here is because that was the choice that we made at some point over and over and over and over again. And so there's not a wrong way to do it. But there is a right way to be thoughtful, to be mindful about your life and to create a life in a world that you actually want to participate and live in, there is a right way to be spiritually sound in your life, and that is to live Christ consciousness way, meaning that you are only giving, life force energy to everything and anything that comes into your world or your environment. And anytime that there is a thought that lowers that vitality that is meant to be there, then you know things are a little bit off here. I'm thinking something that's not correct. I'm out of alignment. I'm not being truthful about something. And when you can recognize that, then you can begin to move towards the truth. Because truth requires consistency. It's not just occasional insight. And so most people, they might touch truth, like in a moment of clarity or in a conversation or in a podcast. You've been hit with it sometimes that you think, ooh, that really hit me, right? You've had that. And then what do you do with it after? Sometimes we embody it, but often it just comes in as knowledge that we know we should be doing the thing, but we're not doing it because we are out of alignment with the truth. Because living in truth means that we have to choose it every single day. We have to act on it, and we actually have to embody it. And that requires discipline, not just awareness. It requires correction, not just awareness. And when we begin on this path, we might find that we have more grace for ourselves, right? We're going to stop gossiping. Okay, cool. We're going to stop. We caught ourselves again. Okay, cool. Don't do that anymore. Okay. And then, a couple weeks go by and, you're not doing it so much. And a couple months go by and, you're not doing it at all. And then a couple years go by and it comes into your wheelhouse again just to make sure that you're cool with not doing that anymore. And it's easy. It's dismissed out of your life like it ain't a second thought. But if we go back to the very beginning of it, it took a bit of effort at the start when you were making the change, when things were changing. It felt a little uncomfortable, especially when you were putting yourself in the same environment that you've always been in, with the same friends, the same people that have always done the exact same thing, and you're in there, and now you're like, I have changed. Because I no longer participate in that, but all these people are still participating, and so this is making me feel a little uncomfortable. And there could be all kinds of things that are going through your head at the time. Okay, are they not going to like me because I'm not participating? Are they going to start talking about me now? Are they going to think that I'm superior to them? There could be a billion different lines of thought that are going through your head at that time. And now every step that we take towards the truth, towards living our authentic truth, every one of these steps can also feel uncomfortable. But you can also get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So I noticed, when I was just feeling so amazing all the time. And then somebody came in and tried to ruin my day, and they really did it on purpose. And I let them do it. I let them do it for one whole entire day. And I was really annoyed and really whatever, and then realized, I allowed this to happen and corrected it. And the day after that was just the most amazing, wonderful day. And so I realized, okay, so this is still always on me. So when a bad day comes, I can guarantee myself that not only is it going to be a better day the next day, but like it might be the best day of my life. And so I switched the thinking that I had in those lines. But we make these little micro corrections throughout our life. And I got to say, we never stop. So I have a new friend here in Sedona. His name's Gary. And this man is just absolutely wonderful. And so we were having a talk the other day, and he said something about, I used to really interrupt people. And I had a partner, mention this to me that said, hey, when you interrupt, you're not in your heart space anymore. And so he thought, well, you're right. Well, I don't want that. I want to always be in my heart space. And so he thought, okay, well, I'm going to correct this. And so he's been working on it, and he doesn't interrupt. And, this is something that he's, it's really important to him. But the most amazing thing that came out of this conversation was that I'm like, dang, dude, you are 87 and you are still working on it. And I mean, this man, he's one of the most interesting men I've met. He doesn't have any fear in his life, right? He lives in alignment with love. Like, he's a powerful, amazing, wonderful, insightful wisdom keeper being. And yet still at 87 years old, even though you'd think he's 30, went hiking the other day, and dang, this man is just unbelievably amazing. But it goes to show that the work never ends. And just as soon as we think, oh, we got it all, well, I got all that figured out, well, welcome. Welcome something new into your life that can make you realize that, oh, right, there is still some work here to do. But the work that gets done within us, the core truth, when people don't avoid truth because it's hidden, they don't avoid it, they avoid it because it asks them to be different. And if we are required to be different, then that takes us some admitting to ourselves that, hey, I guess what I was doing wasn't the right thing. Or it maybe was then, but it's not now, or it's not correct. It requires us, because it's asking us to be different, to look at ourselves really, truly deeply. And some people don't want to do that, but you want to do that because that's why you're here listening to that. So what you could ask yourself is, because the truth is it's not absent in people's lives, it's ignored. So you could ask yourself, what truth am I ignoring? Because the moment that you stop avoiding it, your entire life begins to reorganize around it. And so just ask yourself, what truth have I been ignoring about myself? What truth have I been ignoring about others? What truth have I been ignoring about my situation, about my life? And then when you can get really honest with yourself, because you're now not avoiding it, you're not ignoring it, because you're giving it attention and you're saying, hey, no, I want my life to be better. I want something to change. Then ask yourself, what do I need to change? Does something need to change so that I can really, truly live in alignment with the truth? And then I want you to, this is the funnest part, is envision the feeling of freedom that comes when you're fully, truly living in the truth. And it's pretty freaking sweet. And what it can also help you to do is it can help all the people in your life also live in this way, and also begin to admit things to themselves that they haven't even asked, haven't even wondered, haven't even thought of. But this is what I have for you guys here today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is wonderful. And I hold weekly circles every Sunday. I hold a circle, and this is something that you can tune into. We study the Christ letters. So I'll read something from it. I will tune in. I will, see what each person needs who's attending there. I will give some profound and powerful channeled messages while we're on there that even just hearing them can create a shift. And I look forward to seeing you there. You guys can find me on my website, therealhealinginstitute.com. And take care, and I will see you in the next one.